Welcome everyone to our webinar on a document automation platform for quicker first drafts, quicker access to content, and quicker templates. I am joined by an esteemed set of experts in this realm, and I will kick it off and allow Matt and Cinda and Leif to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Sherry. Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending today. I'm Matt Miller, VP of Product Management for our drafting product line. I'll hand it over to Cinda.
Hello, everyone. Cinda Vitselis, Senior Manager of Solutions Engineering, and my team is responsible for all of our Create implementations.
And hello, I'm Leif Granberg, a Lead Solutions Engineer. I'm one of those solutions engineers who helps implement Create solutions. Good to be with you.
And hello, everyone. I'm Sherry Capel, an evangelist here at Litera, and sort of your mistress of ceremonies in this event. We're going to start by telling you all the story and benefits around Create. We'll also showcase the product in terms of how the user experience has shifted, and then also introduce a bit about our next release. Then Cinda is going to talk about the implementation, what you can plan for, the migration, what people responsibilities you might assign and get ready for, and what your immediate next step should be. Then Leif is going to talk all about the architecting the technology, what it takes to set up the back end, the requirements, the technical requirements, and then another next version, and that happens to be a really cool workflow we have for designing and testing and then publishing. And then finally, we're going to have questions, answers, share with you some assets, and close off our webinar today. So with that, Matt, you know, a lot of our attendees today have been on a current document automation solution for, or maybe not so current, for probably 10, 20 years. And this will be a big shift. And so I'm just really curious if you can catch our audience up onto the story, like the backdrop. How did we come up with this new Create platform?
Yeah, sure thing. So we'll take a trip down memory lane to help us get to where we are today with Litera Create, which is our recently released modernized version of our template automation and content reuse platform. So back in 2017, we acquired both Innova and Forte, very similar applications in that they helped us create those first drafts of documents very, very quickly. You had conditional logic built into them and those types of things. As we acquired them, really what we were hearing more and more from our customer base is, could you create specifically really for our lawyers, for our end users, a system that allowed them to more quickly access reusable content. Our users not only were spending a lot of time creating that first draft, but also looking for key clauses or particular content within a document for reuse in a particular document. So in 2018, to add to our what we'll call Create family, we released an application called Clause Companion. In 2019 and 2020, what we started to do was realize we wanted to bring to market a more modern version of this particular product line, one that was better integrated with other third-party data systems that our customers were using, as well as just better integrated for within both Innova Forte and Clause Companion. So bringing our three Create applications together into a modern Create platform that had extensibility into other third-party apps. And in 2021, we released Litera Create. That is officially released on January 11th, really December, excuse me, of 2021.
And Matt, you know, we obviously have been, you know, charting this course for a while. So our audience is really curious, what sort of benefits can they expect to see?
Yeah, perfect. Tease me up perfectly for the next slide here. So again, as we're out talking to customers, we know a tremendous amount of time is spent on the drafting process. So here we have that stat here in bold orange on the right, but we're hearing constantly that 85% of lawyers are spending at least 5 hours per week on drafting documents. We hear even more time spent looking for best content for that particular document that you're working on. So we wanted to combine technology to make your users more efficient in these processes. So as part of the reimagining of Litera Create and modernization of Litera Create, we kind of had three primary themes that helped from a benefits perspective. One was consolidation, and our users here that we're looking to help benefit was the IT staff, the folks that had to deploy and administer these applications. So that was a core focus for us, as well as our end users. We wanted to maximize usage and adoption and make them as efficient as possible within the application. So what we did with Litera Create was we brought together Innova, Forte, and Clause Companion together in a modernized Create platform that can right now can be used on PCs, but it is architected in a manner which will allow us to create any front end to the application that we want, allowing you and your users to access templates and content reuse from anywhere on any device. So that, to reiterate that, Forte, Clause Companion, and Forte, Innova, and Clause Companion are a single installation from Litera now with a single administrator from Litera, where it was previously 3 installers with 3 administrators and 3 license keys. That's just down to 1. The architecture, from an architecture perspective, which really moves us into the next theme of modernization. And this is kind of what you see from Create is directionally where all of drafting, every drafting application we have today is going. This is a services-oriented architecture. This allows us to be incredibly flexible in terms of interoperability between applications within drafting. It also allows us to lend the business logic from some of the drafting applications into other Litera product families, like our workflow product line or our firm intelligence product lines. It also allows us within drafting to create any interface we want. So if you've been following some of our releases for some of our other applications that might have been a little further on its services journey, we have released things like O365 web apps to allow you to use some of these drafting applications from iPads and Macs. Similarly, you'll see that type of stuff from Create. Right now, it just has a classic Visto desktop app consuming that web services and APIs, but incredibly performant application. The other big piece there, on the prior slide, we were talking about the discovery process. So we spent a lot of time talking to both Innova and Forte customers. What are those 10 features that your users are really using 90% of the time? We wanted to nail those workflows that will help optimize adoption and usage within the applications and make your users more efficient as they move through these applications. Innova and Forte were a pretty feature-rich applications from a ribbon perspective. A bit more training had to go into the basic workflows of those apps. We wanted to make it as simple as possible. So on the next slide here, we've got some screenshots of what the legacy applications looked like from a insertion of variable content, and then what the new application looks like. So on the far left there is Innova, down the middle was Forte, and on the far right now is the new Litera Create. This is the task pane of the application, where your users would be prompted to fill in specific content for a particular document type they're creating. All of that logic there can be built conditionally or non-conditionally within the application. And even more so, we brought data to the forefront of the application, allowing you to even more quickly and more efficiently assemble documents and access content.
So Matt, before we kind of move to the next stage of this conversation, a couple of things. When you were speaking about simplification, the additional aspect of this was the design of templates and the definition of templates and automation. Equally, the fact that more people can now become sort of content owners and content designers and some of those things. Could you speak a little bit about that? And then I want to make one more comment on this when you're done.
Sure. So I think another core user for us is the administrators of these applications. So the ability to create templates, add conditional logic quickly to get templates stood up for your firm, simplify that process was a driving factor for us. Cinda can speak to this as well as part of her piece that she'll cover today, but that was another area we focused on. We also wanted to put the ability for your end users to create their own repositories of best content, to create their own templates and automate their own templates. So you'll see for some of the screenshots I'll bring up here in the next couple slides, we did extend the ability to very easily create some basic templates for your true end users. We automated that process through a new feature we have in Create called anonymization, which will add variables to deal specific terms within your documents that you're looking to turn into templates.
Very good. So the other thing, Matt, you brought up the 3 screen capture, sort of the 2 things we've consolidated into Create document automation. I guess the question is, how have our customers and prospects reacted to the design of New Create? Do they see it as a massive change in this regard or simpler? I'm just curious what sort of feedback you've gotten.
The feedback's been positive. We actually, as part of the development process, we ran an early access program with about 20 to 30 different firms, giving them early access to the application as the interface, as the backends were being built, so that we ensured we were kind of hitting the mark. We understand, obviously, from the IL-to-Tech surveys in particular, change management can be difficult. So moving to Litera Create shouldn't be an entirely new training exercise for your users. It should actually be simpler, ideally, than it was before. Your users, the core workflows your users were involved with previously should even be more at the forefront of the application and easier to flow through. So feedback through early access and even for some of our initial customers looking to roll out Litera Create has been positive.
And Matt, I think that the additional comment I would make, just my own, experience with it, is so much more consistency of those workflows. So you can do things with the same skills over and over and over. So with that, why don't we talk about what all of this looks like?
All right, so we were going to do a live demo, but instead we're going to do a static demo. Our server here was getting updated by our DevOps team and is not currently accessible to me. But if you want a live demo, I'd be happy to, or anybody here at Litera would be happy to run you through it. So I'll walk you through what we'll call a low-tech demo. So screenshot 1 is showing the new ribbon interface. If you're familiar with the ribbons that were part of Innova and Forte, again, very feature-rich ribbon set. These are the core features that we can see from our telemetry data, as well as talking to our users. These are the feature set that they're using 80–90% of the time. Predominantly, your users are just clicking that far left button, Create. So when clicking that button, a user would get a dialog to come on screen. That is screenshot 2. That dialog is more flexible than it's ever been. So it allows you, the law firm, to push out firm-specific templates. You can see there we've got letter, memo, faxes, and pleadings, but that's totally configurable to the firm specifications. You can also create packets. So this is a group of documents you want to be able to quickly generate. All that can be stood up by administrators and pushed out. You'll also see at the top there, favorites, shared stuff, and my stuff. So this is an area where your users are able to create kind of their own personalized journey within the Create application. They're able to more easily favorite templates that you've pushed them or ones that they've created themselves. They can share templates and content amongst one another or to groups of users more easily than ever. And then at the bottom there where it says choose a data set, this is where we brought data more to the forefront of the application. So again, both the administrators of the applications can set up data sets. This will help users to more quickly populate content. So screenshot 3 there as an example. This is the task pane that would launch, guiding me through what areas of a letter in this example I need to fill in. We could have pre-populated this information based on providing my user with a data set that is best suited for that particular letter. So the administrator can do that. The users can also create their own data sets. So if I would have brought this letter up and filled in all those variable components in the task pane and then clicked save data at the bottom, I would have just created my own data set, which I could have used the next time I generate this letter to accelerate my drafting experience. I can also share that data with other folks at the firm. So a lot of that is new capabilities. The last piece I wanted to show, actually in the bottom left, or excuse me, bottom right of the screenshot 3, there was an option to show finish and show library. See, Sherry's navigating there now. Thank you, Sherry. So this is where we connected the workflows between our templating solutions and our content reuse solution. So Innova Forte now linked up with a seamless workflow with what was Clause Companion, all in this new single harmonized create platform called Litera Create. So your users could choose to finish, just like they could always. They can also finish and show library, which would immediately move them into a content library where they can, in this view here that we're looking at, I've got a couple of favorited clauses pinned at this point in time. I can also search across content that has been provided to me firm-wide, as well as search across content that has been shared to me or that I have stored off on my own. So that's all part of the new workflows. The one screenshot here that I don't have is the anonymization process. So as a user looks to store off content into the banks, our anonymization process would look for deal-specific terms in the document or in the clause they're looking to sale off and ask if the user wants to apply a variable, so that next time they use that content, they don't have to do a find and replace for that condition, the deal-specific terms. It will just prompt them, what do you want the date to be? What do you want the dollar amount to be? What do you want the customer name to be? The next slide here is just a quick sneak peek at some stuff we're working on for our Q2 release, and we'll get into release dates here in a moment. But as you're looking for content, we now have capabilities to recommend content to users based on the type of document they have on screen or the client matter who they're working with. This is some more of the back end, some of the administrator capabilities, but we're able to integrate with Net Documents and iManage to pull specific clauses and keep them in sync between our recommendations database as well as the document management system. And then on the right, what we're looking at is I've been recommended a series of clauses I might want to use as potentially better versions in the document I'm drafting. This is the new integrated filtering set that will be available in Create as part of our Q2 release. In this example, you can see I'm filtered on industry. You can see the little one there, but I could filter on a host of different options here to narrow in on what might be best for the customer or partner I might be working with as I'm drafting.
So Matt, tell us what's coming next.
So in terms of next, all of drafting releases quarterly. At the end of the quarter are our releases. Our Q2 release will be on the 12th of July. Some of the highlights that we're looking there is, one, we should have a hosting option available. So the client piece will still be a Visto desktop app that you would deploy to your users, but Litera will look to host the backends, our Create web platform. Again, you'll learn more about this from Cinda and Leif here shortly. So that will be an additional option from Litera, a hosted option, a hosted backend option. We've also integrated, we'll ship with a connector to our Foundation application. So Foundation is this experience management application. It has a ton of client data information. So we will have a connector. If you're a Foundation customer or looking at Foundation, you'll now be able to integrate with that system and pull client matter data into Create as part of your document assembly process. So where I showed that little data drop-down option, Foundation would be a new option there where you could use data at rest in Foundation to populate documents you're creating out of the Create system. And then the enhanced recommendation system, that is the images we just saw on the prior slide. For our Q3 and Q4 release. Still obviously working with our engineering teams to plan those out, those a little bit further out. So I won't make any promises on what will be delivered there, but those are the dates. October 4th and January 10th of 2023 will be our Q4 release dates.
Thank you, Matt. And so with all of these exciting innovations, we move next to Cinda, who's going to talk about how we can implement and take advantage of them. And Cindy, you know, as we move into any new land, there's always a bit of a new language to speak, right? And so I think it would be great for us to start with a little bit of decoder ring vocabulary. So tell us what all of these letters mean.
Thank you, Sherry. So I just wanted to step back for a second and talk about how create, I mean, it's, as you saw from Matt's presentation, it's not really just a template and macro package anymore, but a platform, a web platform. And that's what that CWP stands for. And part of the reason why we wanted to surface these now is we do talk about them, and because create web platform, create desktop application, sometimes it's easier just to say CWP and CDA. We wanted to make sure you knew what they all meant. But if you think about the create web platform as being that set of services in the database that's doing all the work, and now we have our first application, the create desktop application, that actually takes advantages of services on that create web platform. But with that said, think about that. That platform, Litera is going to be building additional applications that leverage that platform. Not only that, but your firm could build a application, a UI, or a connector that takes advantage of the CWP APIs also. So I think that's really important just in terms of setting the stage. When we talk about implementing the solution, we're going to be talking about the create web platform and the create desktop application. So to be able to distinguish the two, I think is important. And then we have NTD, which is our numbering TOC solution that is bundled with create. So if you purchase the create template package, you will automatically get the numbering TOC and doc ID solution, which my team will help you configure.
So this means we're not bound to the desktop anymore in terms of all of that data and such. So this becomes really exciting over these coming releases. So next, you're going to tell us a little bit about how an implementation is planned out.
Yes. So when my team engages with a firm, one of you, hopefully in the near future, we have a whole process to go through to implement the create solution. And the most important part of that process, probably no surprise to you, is the preparation. And we always start off our create implementations with a kickoff call with the customer and the entire implementation team. And part of the reason for that is we really think that it's so important to make sure we are aligned, that the firm knows what we will be implementing, what the process is for the installation, what is involved in the customization, what is going to be happening with training and adoption. We want to spell that out all from the very beginning. As part of that preparation also, there are going to be certain things that the firm will need to do prior to the installation of the solution. So we want to make sure you're aware of that. Also, in terms of sample documents, key component of any implementation for a template package is making sure that the firm has samples that they can provide to us so that we know what we're going to bring into the solution. And then we'll set up a series of calls throughout the implementation. They may be weekly, bi-weekly. It all is going to depend on how quickly the implementation needs to happen. When we move on to the installation phase, this is all about what do you need to do to your servers to get them prepared for the installation of the solution? What files do we need to get to you to be able to put on your servers? We will then set up an installation call. We will have some readiness calls prior, and then we will set up an online session where we actually walk through the installation of both the create web platform as well as the client piece. And we will also ensure that all of your author personnel that you want to be able to access when you're creating documents, that you have access to them easily. When you look at this slide, I just talked about the installation, but that is not happening kind of in a vacuum or it does not have to happen prior to we get into the customization and configuration of the templates. It doesn't have to happen prior to the training. Some of that is all happening simultaneously. So while you're going to be working with a technical engineer on the installation, you will be working with another individual on the project management and customization of your templates. So a big important part of the customization piece is our requirements document, and that is we are going to go through the process of what we are going to be either migrating and or creating, and we're going to make sure that, again, that we are aligned so we know your agreement is going to be both brought in and configured and customized within the solution. Once we get to the actual creation phase, that's where it gets pretty intense, if you will, and that we break the content into iterations so that while we are designing content, we maybe take 2 weeks to go in and design your correspondence templates. Then we will send you a database so that you can test. While you're testing that, we will then start in on the next part of correspondence or maybe on the litigation. And it's a cycle that we go through where we design, you test, you provide feedback, we make changes, we test, you test, kind of goes around in that cycle until all your content is templates is created. During the configuration and customization phase, we also will do the configuration of your numbering, TOC, and doc ID. Okay? So that will happen at that same time. And then we get to the last piece, which is the training adoption. We do a number of overview trainings throughout the implementation for both administrative and end user trainings. And then toward the end pre-pilot, we will do a full-blown train the trainer. And then throughout the whole process, we will be working with you on awareness messaging, developing a communication plan, and a training strategy. And I will be talking more about that in a little bit. But those things are all happening during the course of the implementation.
And Cinda, I think that awareness messaging is such a key component, and it seems as if it can, even start a whole lot earlier than sometimes we have done in the past implementations. Which brings me to a comment I want to make. You have done such a great job of leading the content team, the create team, at devising content and filling in some of the gaps and things that we might have had, even across all of the applications we're bringing forward. I think the case in point that I'm thinking about are pleadings. And so I think as we move into this next piece, which is something I'm sure all our existing customers are very curious about, is how to migrate, and what are some of the strategies that we can help our customers take?
Yeah, so when we talk about the migration, I mean, really, no matter what solution you're coming from, we all start at the same point, right? So we need to find out, what is your current state? Where are you at? Do you have, we need to get your database, sample documents, all your assets, because we need to be able to evaluate what we can migrate from your current solution and what we will need to recreate. So we will be asking you for these assets, and then we will be taking a look at them, and we will then say, okay, if you're coming from, say, Forte or Clause Companion, in those cases, the database structure is the same, and roughly 90% or more of the logic that's built into those templates is going to come across. Okay? Whereas if you're coming from ANOVA, the database is very, very different. And so, especially if you're coming from those early versions of ANOVA where there was a lot of VBA written, that VBA is not going to be able to be migrated. So if you have a lot of VBA, that conditional logic will need to be recreated once it's brought over. And if you're coming from a solution other than Forte or ANOVA or Clause Companion, so some other legacy template and macro solution, there will be no data migration, but we will be able to reuse the templates. So any kind of formatting that you've done, all that we will be able to leverage when we bring that content into Create. And then it will just be a matter of going in and automating those templates and building in that conditional logic. So once we have migrated the database, once we get to that starting point database, we need to think about what kind of cleanup we might need to do, whether or not we're have to go in and revise templates, or if we're going to have to create new, if there's certain content that doesn't exist in either our starting point database. Because I do want to make a point that in our starting point database in Create, we have an extensive litigation library. So when you choose to go, if you're coming, say, from another legacy solution, you can choose to just use our built-in litigation templates. Maybe you want some minor customizations done. Maybe there's a unique pleading that isn't in it, but everything else is probably going to be there. If you're coming from Forte or Anova, you can choose whether or not you want to go with your current pleadings or whether or not you want to use the built-in litigation. Okay. So we will go through the process of revising any content that was migrated, any built-in content, as well as taking advantage of the content that is in there and being able to recreate it and add in logic capabilities, add in any content that you want to pull in that your sponsors have recommended to us. And then finally, when you get to the reconfigure, this is really about the numbering, TOC, and doc ID, because this piece, it really is about configuring those, your numbering schemes and the doc ID to work with your DMS solution.
Wonderful. So Cinda, this all involves people. So what can you tell our audience about preparing themselves about this change?
Well, you know, as we think about it, everything we've been talking about so far has really talked about the technical changes required for a firm. And I mean, you and I both know, Sherry, it is just as important, more important are the changes that people are going to experience. I mean, it's critical. So when you think about just historically, when we moved into Word and, you know, we designed our templates and we branded our correspondence, we integrate with, you know, Outlook, interaction, all of this historically was really geared towards admins and staff, but things have changed. I mean, lawyers are doing more of their own work and they have increasing needs for document automation. And this level of automation, it goes beyond creating your letter or memo. It goes beyond the desktop. And, you know, lawyers really want to find ways to accelerate and streamline their practices, and they're really looking to us to help them provide these solutions. So when we start talking about the people, we really want, again, it goes down to preparation. I mean, preparing your users for change and preparing the entire firm for change. And one of the most important things you can do is just understand the current state. What are your users doing now? What are their current workflows? What do they need to be able to do right out of the gate when they move to Create? You really need to understand that so you can understand how big of a change this is going to be for your users. And the bigger the change, the more important it is that you're engaged and active in helping them through this transition. So to do that, I mean, one of the most important things is determining what you believe the value is for Create. I mean, what is it going to give your users, and how are you going to track that progress and benchmark it along the way? What are the benefits? What's the return on investment you're looking for? All of those kind of types of information is going to impact the messaging that you're going to deliver to your users, and is going to determine what stakeholders you're going to get involved in the process and why. And really, if you go through and do this strong preparation, I mean, it's going to help not only with the success of this project, but it's going to, the more firms are engaged, the more successful they are, and it can help you beyond just this project itself. So then when we get into change, we're really talking about building out and implementing your communication plan and your strategy. So some of the things that you want to be thinking about are, how are you going to help your end users make this transition as seamlessly as possible? Who at the firm can you engage to be a champion, a sponsor, an influencer? And identifying these individuals and getting them to participate can really make a big difference. And then you want to think about, when you are working on your messaging, tailoring your messaging to each group, because what the legal secretaries need is different than what the paralegals may need. It might be different than what the attorneys are going to need, and what they're going to see as the benefits of the solution. So you really want to make sure that in order to help people through this change, you're really targeting, you know, what each particular group is going to need. And then finally, when we get into sustaining the adoption in the long term, you want to think about gathering feedback. How are you going to be able to gather the feedback? You need to be talking to your users. Take advantage of Litera's usage tracking that we're going to be able to provide you. That can contribute and give you a more holistic view of what your users are experiencing and how they're using the solution. And the more feedback you get, the more you can compare it to the metrics related to the firm's business values to ensure that you are staying on track with the solution and that you're getting the adoption that you want to have for the solution.
It's wonderful, and we do have a team that is focused on change management and adoption that augments the team that Cinda is using for implementing the automation and technology. So that's very exciting. So what would you tell people to do just to get started?
Well, the number one delay in create implementations is firms identifying which templates they want to move forward. Because, and I would just recommend start now. Whether you're planning to start a create implementation in 1 month or 9 months, think of it as spring cleaning. Create a list, go through and review your existing templates, weed out find out now what's not being used, find out what are the ones that are being used, but they're being underused because they're not automated. Are there templates out there that could be automated and would make the attorneys' lives a lot easier and would really help them, and they'd see then a benefit in moving to create because you could add in that additional automation. Also reviewing the templates, organizing by them, whether or not they have automation or not, because they'll be brought into the solution differently depending on if they're automated or not. And a really important piece of this is when you're doing your template review is identifying the right person for the job. So make sure that you go in and you find somebody who can not only weed through what you have, but can think about the bigger picture of how you might be able to use the solution that we're giving to you and take advantage of it. On the content side, you really want to think about engaging your knowledge management team if you have one. Or if you don't have a KMT, this is even more important, identifying sponsors. So who are the practice group leads that you can draw on who might be able to help you identify that key content that you want to bring into the Create solution? The practice group leads, KM team, they're going to be the ones who can help you identify that. They'll also be able to help you promote the solution, and they're going to be extremely important to the success of the implementation. So if you can start thinking about those things now, start capturing that content, making sure that the content you're capturing and how you're organizing it is findable within the solution is going to really help make your transition to as we start the implementation go that much smoother. And then finally, for the installation piece, there are just a couple items I'm going to mention, and that is about provisioning your servers and determining the installation model you're going to use. I'm not going to expand on that anymore because that is going to be taken care of by Leif in the next part of the presentation.
Cinda, thanks so much. This, I think, well arms our organizations to prepare for and implement the new Create platform. So with that, Leif, I know that you're going to talk now about those servers and some of the technology. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry, and of course, Matt and Cinda for setting the frame here. So we're going to talk about servers and technical details in just a minute, but of course, based on what we've just heard, we want to, of course, set the context here. You've already heard from Matt and Cinda about some of the why did we create Litera Create. So let's start with the aim. And we're going to start with the text in the blue, right? Litera Create is an extensible platform-based web services architecture. Okay, that might sound like a mouthful, but of course, Matt and Cinda and Sherry have all said pieces of this already. Really what that says is we want to create an environment that matches your attorney workflows. So we can take all of our experience with these existing products, plus all the work that we do going out and talking to our customers. What do your attorneys want to be able to do? Well, they want to be able to author documents more efficiently. That comes from how long does it literally take for me to click on the letter icon to when it appears on my desktop? Can I go ahead and take advantage of data that other people in the firm have created, right? Do I always have to create my own data the first time? That content that Cinda and Matt have both talked about, right? Can I go ahead and access content created by administrators and other users and sharing? Putting all this on a web platform means, great, we can access all that. Integrate templates and content, right? Why do I have to, if I create a document, why do I always have to look to the DMS to find the content? Your data sources. You already have client matter data stored. In fact, you may have it stored in Foundation. As Matt mentioned, this is our first integration for like client matter type information. Why type that information in every time when you can go ahead and access that, bring in rich data that you already store. Take advantage of the information you already have. Manage content and templates wherever you work. Well, if you have an administrator who's a practice group a KM lead in Tokyo and a KM lead in London, they can all work where they are with Create. We'll come back to this. Migrate your existing data. Cinda already mentioned this, right? Take advantage of the migration tools we already have. So if you've done work to customize Forte, Content Companion, etc., you can bring that content right in to Create and take advantage of it. Working beyond the desktop, this has been hinted at here. This is coming. This is not here today, but absolutely on the roadmap. And the reason we put this on a web platform is, why can't your attorneys bring up content information on their tablet, right? Not possible today, certainly not possible with our legacy applications, but with Create, they're connecting to a web platform. They can pull up using our open API architecture, which we will be publishing and making available, content, and your own firm developers can also access that data. So it's not owned by Litera, locked away inside of a desktop. It's available to your firm to take advantage of that intelligence, that information that you have. And finally, of course, and certainly not last, is security. Litera Create is built from the ground up with security in mind. So users have to authenticate. Applications have to authenticate to get access to that data. It is well constrained. We'll be building an additional security functionality. Again, on the server means that we can put a strong frame around who and what can access it.
So Leif, I think that the next slide is the one everyone has been waiting for. You know, in every one of these technology presentations, there's at least one scary slide. And the next one is our scary slide. There you go.
Okay, look at all those boxes. So and this, by the way, is directly from our Litera Create documentation. So if you are very interested in this, we are more than happy to provide you a link to this. But before we dive into details, and we'll look at a few elements. We're not going to look at every little yellow box. High level, left side, desktop. Everything in that blue box in the middle, server side, little blue boxes around the edges, your data that you maintain elsewhere. Your document management system, your authentication, Active Directory, etc. So high level, this is the integration of the desktop, the Create server, and your existing data. So Sherry, if we can go ahead and look on the left side, Sherry's going to do an awesome zoom operation here. Left side for the desktop part. Thank you so much. All right, so end users, Matt already showed you what we're calling CDA, or the Create Desktop Application, right? That's how end users will create letters and insert content, share data with each other, do their own customizations. Admins and designers have 3 websites that they access. They're secure, accessible only to people with the rights. And this means that, again, my KM lead in Tokyo and my KM lead in London, they can just go to a website. They don't have to have any special access beyond what the application gives them. And then they can control the application. If we have time, we'll give you a very short demo of that later on. All right, and then you can see those lines. We won't talk about every technical detail, but those lines coming out of that says, hey, every action, the user is known, the application accessing the data is known. So an arbitrary website can't get access. An arbitrary user, hey, they don't have rights, they don't do it. Okay. Let's go ahead and zoom in actually on the middle blob there, the stack of the 3. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so Again, keeping things very high level, when a user makes a request in Create, as Matt mentioned, right, we're not processing that on the desktop, sometimes slow times, right? We all know lots of COM add-ins on your desktops can make things slow. With Create, we send that request to the server. The server is speedy, it processes the request, gets data from that CAN object, the server, the SQL server, and then sends it back to the user. So we're processing data on the server, makes it speedy, and then it gets access to all the additional functionality. So the two larger green topped sections there that you see, those are services that are coming. So that's the extensible part, right? We are building Create very actively. Client Matter integration, that's coming in Q2, as Matt mentioned, with Foundation. So being able to integrate with your existing Client Matter data, it's all happening on the server. So you don't have to touch the desktops as often, right? You don't have to update desktop software just to get access to data. It goes on the server, it's extensible, you connect. Content library, maybe you have content in iManage, or you use Kira, or you have additional content sources that you want to bring in. That's coming in a future release. So we will keep this process going of adding functionality on the server side. Your technical team can deploy those. We have a standard process for it. Lastly,
So
I just want to touch, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, good.
I was just going to say, so we've seen the picture of this architecture, the specific details. What are the technical requirements?
Bum, bum, bum. Why don't we go to the next slide? Okay, awesome. So, and these requirements, of course, are again in our standard documentation. We're more than happy to share with you. And what are the basics? Cinda mentioned this a minute ago in terms of the preparation. The architecture on the web platform side, on your server side, 3 Linux servers. That's for production. If you set this up in a dev or test environment, you can have fewer. 1 SQL server, Active Directory, and client desktops. So in your current environment, you almost certainly have 3 of those 4. You almost certainly have a SQL server, Active Directory implementation, and of course your regular desktops, nothing new there. You may not have Linux servers. We have standard advice for how to set those up, how to ensure that they're provisioned, and to guide your team through configuring those. But the reason we're using Linux is basically performance. The performance of these web apps is faster and better under Linux. Cost, no cost to configure those servers, and industry standard. It's the industry standard for how you for deployment of web services. The details. Well, no surprise for today, right? As everybody has been saying, it's a COM add-in in Word, just like your current Word interfaces. Faster maybe, but still integrated in Word. You have this authentication and data pairing. So this will be something we'll cover carefully with your technical team, but we pair authentication, Active Directory, with where your data is stored. And again, this is for security. We have 2 models, Active Directory Federation Services, in other words, on-premises Active Directory, and Microsoft SQL Server. Or if you're an Azure shop, Azure Active Directory, Microsoft's online Active Directory, and Azure SQL, Microsoft's online SQL implementation. You'll get your authors for Create. Again, everyone is known in Create. Everyone has rights from your Active Directory or a SQL source. You control that. 1 platform per region. Great. You have a lot of users in Australia. You go ahead and set up a Create platform there. It automatically replicates with your platforms in the US, in the UK, elsewhere. Everyone has speedy access. All the data is integrated. Maybe you have an office with tight regional controls. No problem. You can put a platform there and their data is separate and secure. You have 1 office, no problem. You have 1 platform, so you're not required to. So it's very flexible and extensible also on your side. And of course, additional connections to new services, Client Matter, et cetera.
Wow, Leif, this is awesome. So now the next question is all about the next. The next version, workflow. For the Innova folks, you may know of it as like work in progress, or in Forte, it was the publish process. But why don't you tell us about how someone goes about designing something without making it live to everyone?
Yeah, this is something we're very excited about, because obviously, right, your team members, and we use the word designers and administrators, but you may have different words depending on what application you're using. They want to add and customize content. They want to be able to test it before it goes live to users. And with some of the existing products, that process hasn't always been entirely clear. With Create, we've made very clear distinctions. You can design, that's what we call adding new templates and adding new content, from getting my camera aligned, testing, right? Let's review that work before it goes live to production. And finally, let's push it live to production. So what we have with this current version and next version buttons, which by the way are not visible to end users. This is special to people who are designers, administrators, and testers. So especially people with special rights. The designer goes into next version, right? So they're no longer looking at what everybody else can see. They add new things, new templates. Someone's requested a new agreement. They go ahead and create it. They make sure it works. They set it for testing. It's still in next version, so regular users can't see it, but testers now have access because it's ready for testing. Testers sign off, they say it's wonderful. The designer sets it for publishing. They say, administrator, please publish. The administrator, anywhere in the world, clicks one button. It is now visible, no refreshes, automatically immediately to all users who are currently logged in to create the new functionality. And then we start a new cycle. Of course, this means that if, oh, sorry, Sherry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so this really means that there isn't, I should say, the bottleneck that we've often seen, because we can distribute this amongst multiple people, the content owners, and it seems very seamless then to, and controlled to getting it to the users.
Yeah, that's really the idea, because many of our customers, of course, over time have really asked us, how do we manage that workflow, between the owners, the people who do the technical work of creation, the people who do the work of testing, and the end users. And really, we've tried to make those steps distinct now so that you can control them based on how you work in your environment.
Very good. Anything else, Leif?
Well, we're very excited. We have quite a bit of interest in Create. We're working with a number of our customers right now to start setting up, doing the work that Cinda was talking about to prepare simultaneously the content, the templates, and of course the technical implementation. So we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt, Cinda, and Leif, for all of this great insight about preparing for new Create. And at this stage, we wanted to both share with you some of the assets that are available, but equally answer some of your questions. So if you want to type those into the chat, we will answer those that we can during the time we have left. We will respond via email with a list of questions and answers that we received. And then let me go ahead really quickly while we're queuing up those questions and just let you all know some of the assets that are readily available at this time. First of all, anyone can go to our website and click on the Customer Center. My Products drop-down that you see right here lets you navigate to documentation, and you're able to filter on Litera Create, where you're going to find release notes, the installation guide, all of the things that you're going to need to kind of get acclimated to what's involved, including a user guide. So that will be some great kind of pre-work that you can have on hand. The next set of assets are our adoption resources. Once again, you'll go to the Customer Center, Adopt Litera, and then Litera Create is a new link there. We have marketing materials, getting started guides. There are going to be additional webinars, and as a matter of fact, one of those additional webinars will be about the design aspect of Create. and be on the lookout for the details on that coming up. Best practice guides, as well as case studies. All of these things are coming soon. So keep checking back on these adoption resources. I wondered, Cinda, is there anything that I forgot here in terms of these assets, or is this pretty much where our customers are going to find this?
This is definitely the best place to look. And we post things up here, new items up here as we get them.
Including the videos. So there's even a video there, so you can get some spotlight information. We're going to take this recording, as a matter of fact, and also share aspects of it out to everyone. So with that, let's see what questions we have queued up. And wow, so first was the question about the admin side. As I said, that is something that we're going to showcase and focus on in a future webinar. And seeing it and the design. So what is involved with a template administrator to create and update templates? Is the numbering table of contents in DocID migration easier if Litera numbering is already in use? So I think that the one thing I want to mention about Litera numbering in answer and response to that is that Litera numbering has, what would we say, Cinda and Leif, a number of different front ends, let's say. In short, the way that you will migrate NTD into NTD is you're going to generate your numbering schemes into a document. And from there, it is easy to migrate the example designs into NTD because you just open the document and save off, maybe make a couple of modifications if you need to, save that off into the data store that is for numbering table of contents in DocID. Anything about that, Leif or Cinda, that I didn't say and they should know about? Is that good?
You're good.
Okay, great.
We'll work with you when you have your project. This is one of the things we always request from our customers is samples of your numbering, just like templates. So thank you.
And as a matter of fact, if you want to see information about what it looks like, how it's used, once again, go to Customer Center, My Products, Documentation, and bring forward the NTD information. The documentation is there, technical as well as end user. Does Litera have a tool within New Create for monitoring? Oh, sorry, I edited that. Does Litera have a tool to monitor usage of the existing templates? Cinda, can you take pieces of that one? I know it's unique for later versions of Forte. If you want to talk about that.
Yes, so if you are on the later versions of Forte, then yes, there is usage tracking. If you're on earlier versions, there is not, depending on how far back you go. And then for Innova, we do not have usage tracking. So I believe, and I don't know, Leif, if you remember the exact version, but I think it's 12.8 and above. We definitely have it. Well, I know we definitely have it 12.8 and above. I don't know. I know there are some earlier versions where we don't. We could, if somebody has a question about a particular version, we could find that out and get back to them.
So this question I may not fully understand. Maybe Leif and Cindy, you can help me. Where is the migration on the plan side? So perhaps that means in relation to the planning, where does migration fall?
Yes, so I think that may be relating to the slide that I covered where we talked about the plan and does it fall under preparation, installation, configuration, or customization. And the migration actually falls under the configuration and customization because it's going to be the team that is going to be reviewing the templates who will migrate your database and then go in and take a look at, you know, what's involved in cleaning them up or to add to recreate that conditional logic.
Understood, and good point. So then our final question, is it common to automate a lot of templates during an implementation?
So for this, we like to think of create implementations in phases. So it's going to depend on, you know, if you are coming from, say, Forte and, you know, a lot of your existing templates migrate, well then, you know, we may want to take it to the next step and automate a fair number of new templates during that phase. If you're coming from another legacy solution, we certainly want to get in those core templates first. That's most important for your initial rollout, where you want to make sure they have the correspondence, they have the core litigation ones they need. And then beyond that, it's a matter of, sometimes it's really nice if you've never had an automated engagement letter to do an automated engagement letter or an agreement for a particular practice group that's going to kind of generate interest in the solution. So I'd like to do some of those during the initial implementation if possible. So it will depend. We kind of work with you during the requirements phase to determine what we want to do, like what's required and what are kind of those carrots we want to dangle in front of the users to get them excited about the move to the new solution.
There are always in these implementations, and as you say, there are always those things that really can ease a current burden in terms of a currently unmet, unautomated need. But then there are also those things, as you've outlined in your process, that can be done in a kind of phased approach. So I want to thank Matt, Cinda, and Leigh for all of the great information today. I want to thank all of you for attending. Please send in your questions, tune in to all of our next webinars, look at those assets we shared. We look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.